The most dangerous site on the dark web was Silk Road. Everything illegal, dangerous, and strictly off-limits lived right there. Every shady off-the-books deal happened on this platform. But the weirdest part? Every time Interpol managed to bust the people running it, the site would go down for a few weeks, only to come back stronger than ever. According to some sources, the entities behind it held power rivaling world superpowers. Messing with Silk Road was a total red line. Cross it, and you could vanish off the face of the earth. Now, imagine all that terror and power, and then imagine one guy managed to steal over $3 billion from them. Even crazier, the founder of this site, one of the most dangerous men on the planet, reached out to the thief directly. He offered him a 4,000 Bitcoin bounty just to explain how he pulled it off. The hacker refused. What followed is a story so wild, it almost sounds impossible. Today, I am telling you the story of the world's weirdest and arguably dumbest hacker. A guy who played with the biggest site on the dark web, pulled out insane amounts of cash, lived a life of absolute luxury, and then made a mind-boggling move that led investigators straight to a chest weighing less than 20 grams. I actually know why he did it. Do not ask me how or why just yet. I will answer every single question on your mind. If you stumbled on this video by chance, hit that subscribe button. You will not regret it, because like we always say, every story might sound familiar, but it is never the same until I tell it to you. Before we get into the main story, we need to talk about how Silk Road actually worked, so you can understand the scale of what went down. Silk Road was, and remains, one of the most infamous sites on the dark web. Its services ran the gamut, from small firearms all the way to illegal goods and contraband. It was essentially the Amazon of the dark web. Vendors set up shop, listed their items, and buyers browsed and bought. Browsing the dark web in general, and Silk Road in particular, is like jumping off a 100-story building. Once you are in extreme danger. Why? Because hackers swarm those spaces, one wrong click on a link or icon, and you could lose all your data. Next thing you know, you are being blackmailed, and your personal files are leaking everywhere. If you do not pay up, they will Photoshop your face onto terrible images or leak private info to destroy your life. Think about it. Legitimate multi-billion-dollar companies lose user databases all the time. Imagine what happens on a site built specifically for crime. Take it from me. Do not play around in places you cannot handle. The core requirement for anyone using these sites is anonymity. Everything has to be untraceable. Fake names, burner accounts, and untraceable payment methods. Nobody buys illegal items on a dark web marketplace using a standard bank transfer. That is why crypto became the official currency of the dark web the moment Bitcoin was created. Over time, it evolved from an underground token into a mainstream financial asset. Here is the basic playbook for buying on Silk Road. First, buy crypto on a normal public exchange. Second, launch a specialized secure browser like Tor to access the site. Third, pay in crypto and take delivery. Now that you know the rules of the game, let us meet our protagonist. Meet Jimmy Jong. Looking at him, you would never guess he was a guy capable of going toe-to-toe with kingpins. Born in 1990 in Georgia, Jimmy grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. School was a living nightmare for him due to severe bullying. When Jimmy was 12, his parents divorced, and he stayed with his mother. Distraught, she pulled him out of school entirely, a protective reaction to isolate him from a hostile environment. Jimmy begged his mom for a computer, claiming he wanted to learn programming. In reality, he just wanted to play video games. Wanting to compensate for the father's absence, his mother bought him the PC, and Jimmy started spending hours on end in front of the screen. About a year later, neighbors reported the situation to the authorities, revealing that the mother had forged paperwork while Jimmy was actually home gaming all day. Police and social services intervened, arresting the mother and fining her heavily. Jimmy was placed in a youth counseling facility for a month before being transferred to an experimental alternative school. The social workers recognized something important. Jimmy was exceptionally smart and obsessed with computers. Instead of punishing him, they routed his energy into technology. The school blended standard education with tech curricula. Back in 2003, when such programs were brand new, Jimmy thrived. By 18, he was studying computer science at the University of Georgia. Within his first 2 years, he started freelancing, not as a coder, but as a digital graphic designer, covering his rent and living expenses. One night, Jimmy was hanging out with college friends. One of them mentioned working for a cybersecurity firm, testing websites for security vulnerabilities. The friend casually added, "People doing this exact same job on the dark web make 10 times what my company pays me." That was all Jimmy needed to hear. He jumped onto the dark web and started exploring. Despite his coding background, Jimmy got hacked a few times early on, but he learned fast. He soon realized he was swimming in an ocean of high-level cybercrime, hacking credit cards, breaching secure servers, stealing databases, and finding exploits. Jimmy specialized in vulnerability research, finding security holes in code that allow unauthorized access to sensitive data or crypto wallets. Once he found a flaw, he would either sell the exploit to the highest bidder or get hired by site operators to audit their own platforms. You gave him a target, he found the hole, handed over the report, and took his money. Around 2010, Bitcoin was just starting out, and 1,000 Bitcoins were worth less than $1. Still, Jimmy accepted payouts in BTC while working on Silk Road. Through his freelancing, Jimmy accumulated 25,000 Bitcoins, a massive fortune for a 20-year-old. Then, he made a critical mistake that exposed his identity. Panicking, he cashed out his fiat money, left 40,000 BTC sitting in his Silk Road account, and completely vanished from the dark web for a whole year. He even took a job at a local restaurant to lay low. In 2011, Bitcoin skyrocketed to $26 per coin. When Jimmy heard the news, he did the math. The stash he left behind was now worth over $1 million. He walked right out of his restaurant shift without saying a word. He was a millionaire. He rushed home, booted up Tor, and logged in, only to find his worst nightmare. His account had been compromised and completely drained. $1 million gone into thin air. Defeated, Jimmy decided his only choice was to get back into the game and rebuild from scratch. He went back to offering hacking services, strictly demanding crypto payments. Then came an unbelievable request. A client hired Jimmy to hack Silk Road itself. Think about how absurd that is. It is like hiring someone to hack Amazon while using Amazon messages. Jimmy immediately turned down the job, but the idea stuck in his mind. What if he actually pulled it off? Jimmy started probing Silk Road from the outside, using a fresh burner account. But finding a flaw in a site built by top-tier devs seemed impossible. When people think of legendary cyber heists, they assume the hacker used complex exploit chains. But the flaw Jimmy found was shockingly simple. An elementary logic error in Silk Road's transaction system. It worked like this. When depositing funds, if you multi-clicked the deposit button rapidly before the page refreshed, the system executed the request multiple times. If you deposited $5 and clicked 6 times quickly, the system credited your account with $10 or more. The same glitch existed on the withdrawal button. Jimmy exploited it geniusly. First, on account A, he deposited $100 in BTC, rapidly multi-clicked, and credited the account with $200. Second, he used account A to buy fake programming services from account B, which he also owned. Third, on account B, he withdrew the $200, double-clicked the withdraw button, and pulled out $400. He doubled his money on the deposit side and doubled it again on the withdrawal side, turning $100 into $400 in minutes. To keep a low profile, he spread these transactions over months and occasionally took legitimate small freelance gigs. By early 2013, Jimmy had pulled over 50,000 Bitcoins out of Silk Road, recovering his lost stash and adding much more. Eventually, Silk Road operators noticed a discrepancy in their cold wallets. Millions were unaccounted for. They posted a discreet announcement on the forum. Find a critical bug in our wallet system, win a 10,000 BTC reward. Everyone started looking for massive complex exploits. Nobody checked the basic deposit buttons. Jimmy knew that if he claimed the bounty, Silk Road's admins, run by Ross Ulbricht, would investigate his account, track him down, and eliminate him. Working with darknet cartels is not like dealing with customer service, so Jimmy kept quiet. By 2018, Bitcoin hit $3,200. Jimmy's 50,000 BTC stash was worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He transferred his crypto onto offline hardware wallets and lived like a king, buying mansions, flying private jets, and hosting wild parties. How did he avoid IRS flags? He created 3 shell companies for investments, software, and real estate, laundering his funds. He even invested in legitimate stock markets, growing his clean wealth by another 40%. Meanwhile, back in October 2013, the FBI finally caught Ross Ulbricht and shut down Silk Road. Jimmy breathed a huge sigh of relief. The kingpin who threatened him was behind bars, and Jimmy was off the hook. Fast forward to 2019. Bitcoin was booming, and Jimmy's total net worth hovered around $3 billion. His lawyers had constantly warned him, if you want to stay off the radar, live modestly. One weekend, Jimmy returned home from a trip where he had brought a duffel bag containing $700,000 in cash and a flash drive containing $1 million in BTC. In front of 22 party guests, Jimmy casually stashed the bag in his usual hiding spot. 3 days later, someone broke into his house and stole the bag. Security cameras caught the thief walking straight to the exact hiding spot. Now, if you are a guy worth $3 billion whose entire fortune came from illegal darknet hacking, what do you do when $2 million gets stolen? You let it go. It is a drop in the bucket, and calling the cops invites federal scrutiny into your entire life. In a fit of anger over being betrayed by someone in his inner circle, Jimmy called 911 and reported the burglary. Police arrived, opened a case, and started asking basic questions. What do you do for a living? How do you have $700,000 in cash sitting in a closet? When Jimmy's lawyer found out he called the police, he nearly had a heart attack and immediately started cutting legal ties. For 2 years, federal agents from the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit and cyber forensic experts quietly tracked Jimmy's digital footprint. On May 7, 2021, 2 undercover agents posing as local investigators working the burglary case visited Jimmy's house. In reality, they were elite cybersecurity experts. They spent 4 hours talking with Jimmy while he casually showed off his laptop, his crypto trading setups, and his mining rigs. One agent wore a hidden camera, recording his screens and setups. 5 days later, on May 12, 2021, officers executed a full federal search warrant. While an officer distracted Jimmy outside, agents cloned his unlocked laptop, gaining full access to his encrypted files. During the physical search of the house, investigators searched a dark downstairs closet. Inside, hidden inside an empty Cheez-It box under a pile of blankets, they found a single-board computer and a hardware wallet weighing less than 50 grams. It contained the private keys to 50,491 bitcoins. At the time of seizure, the stash was worth over $3.3 billion, one of the largest financial seizures in United States history. All because he could not let a $2 million burglary go. On April 14, 2023, Jimmy Zhang was sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison, and all his seized crypto was forfeited to the United States government. Because of his elite skill set, several intelligence sources suggest he served minimal time and was recruited by federal cyber defense units. That is the story of Jimmy Zhang, the man who pulled off the ultimate dark web heist, only to get undone by his own ego and a stolen duffel bag. Let me know in the comments. If you were in Jimmy's shoes, would you have called the cops over that $2 million? Catch you guys in the next video. Peace.